if I live to tell. And she has gone through it all. She's been abused and abandoned by her English mother and her Iraqi father, forced into an arranged Muslim marriage, betrayed and broken by all the people who ever promised to love and protect her. This book is her story. Akeela, welcome to today's Issues.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about why you decided to write this book, because the things in this book are both personal and painful, and I imagine in some degree difficult to write down. So introduce us a little bit into your world.
Originally, I'd never shared the story with anyone, so deciding to put it into a book was tough. It was not just sharing with someone, sharing with the whole world. But I came to a point in my life where I decided that if I kept it to myself, it would be all just senseless tragedies. It would be, pointless. But if I shared with it, shared it with the world and shared it with people that may be going through similar things, that may have gone through similar things, are still struggling with those things, then maybe it would help them heal a little bit or see that, it can be overcome and it's not as tough. So I guess what I thought was, and hoped and still hope for, that it might actually help some people instead of just being worthless and painful stuff. It might actually turn some of that bad stuff into good stuff for other people.
Was it difficult for you to write this down? I know in the early part of the book you talk about, in a way, it was a kind of good personal therapy to tell your own story.
Yeah, like I said, there was two reasons. One was selfish in the fact that, I managed to get it all out. It doesn't affect me like it used to, but it was like, those little things that, may trigger or certain things might remind you of. It was the point where I wanted to get rid of all those things and just get it out there and, not hide it or carry it around with me as a burden anymore. So on the selfish side, yeah, it was great to write it down and just finally get it all out in the open.
Tell us about your family background, your mom, your dad, and I know there was a forced Muslim marriage in there. So begin wherever you want, Akeela, and tell us, just give us a flavor.
And did this happen in America?
No, it didn't. I was born and raised in England. I was raised English. My mother is English. My father is Iraqi by birth. But we lived just as, an English family. And then, as I got older, I wanted to learn a little bit more about my heritage, my culture, where my father was from. So I started probing a little bit. And through a few strings of circumstances, my father suggested me go and visit. And visit was, the main word there, that I was supposed to go for a couple of weeks and come home. Ended up being I was kind of tricked, and ended up being there for a little over 2 years.
Being where?
In Iraq.
Okay.
He had sent me there to originally meet the family, find out a little bit about his background and his culture, and I ended up being stuck there for over 2 years.
How do you get stuck there? You mean, were you forced to stay there?
Well, you can't leave.
But you're a British citizen.
Yeah, but at the time, Saddam Hussein was in reign. It was hard to come in. It was hard to go out. A woman didn't leave by herself. She didn't go anywhere by herself. I didn't have any of my paperwork. It was taken from me when I got there.
You were basically kidnapped.
Basically, I was just completely imprisoned to the point where I couldn't even step outside the house.
But did your dad help you get out? Try to get out?
No, he didn't go with me. I went alone.
Okay.
Eventually, through everything that had happened, I finally had managed to, the arranged marriage that I'd gone into, he had convinced him that we needed to come back to England. But originally, no, when I asked him about coming home and told him that I'd been there way too long, it was longer than what we'd agreed, he told me that's when he told me that he wanted me to stay there and become a good Iraqi woman.
We're talking to Akeela. Hayder, Hayder Green. It's a true story she's telling, obviously, based on her life experience. The title of the book is I Live to Tell. No, If I Live to Tell. If I Live to Tell. Where can you get the book?
The book can be bought in several places. It's available on ebook. It's available at patriotdepot.com. Amazon.com has it.
Okay. When is this? Is this like 10 years ago, 15 years ago? When is this?
At the time I was 15.
So
it was.
You're about to give away. You're about to give your age. You know that.
I know. I'm 34 this year.
Yeah. Well, women are sensitive about that. But,
I'm
but I know you were figuring that out right there. But anyway, back during Saddam, so when you were 15 years ago, so several years ago, 20 plus years ago. But I'm just curious, like Ray asked earlier, so you're a British citizen, you're raised there, but you have an Iraqi dad, and what'd you say your mom, what nationality?
My mother is British.
She's British, so, and then you go back to Iraq to discover your dad's family's side, the culture there. You get stuck there. And how long were you there?
Just over 2 years.
2 years. How did you, what happened there? Did you forced to get married to some guy?
Well, no. While I was there, I was abused sexually. So there was a whole lot of stuff that happened in between that, because in Iraq, women are supposed to be a virgin until they're married. It's an honor to the family. If you're not, you're found out to not be a virgin before marriage. It's a total shame on the family. Nobody does business with the family. They have nothing to do with them. They're like lepers. So in order to save that, it's called an honor killing. They kill you to save the family's honor, and then it's restored. Doesn't matter how it happened. It doesn't matter if you were abused. It doesn't matter. And so to save from the honor killing and for me to be killed, they decided to marry me off, and in which case re-virginize me before the marriage.
Re-virginize you? How do you do that?
It's a clinical procedure that basically, in short, they sew you up from top to bottom on the inside.
Wow. So you had to undergo that as part of the whole, along with everything else.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to think about a country that's almost third world. So, it's not exactly, healthy or sanitary. It's basically a backwoods clinic where they take you in, literally sew you up with no anesthesia, nothing. It's just brutality.
Is this common in Muslim countries?
I would say they knew what they were doing, but it's highly illegal. So, to add that to it, you're sneaking around and hoping not to get caught by the police, and it's highly illegal and extremely expensive.
Not to mention evil and barbaric.
Well, yeah.
So you ended up married to an Iraqi man.
Yes, I was re-virginized the night before and then taken to be married the next day in hopes that I would bleed onto a cloth, which is a big religious ceremony where it is shown the next day that you're a virgin and that your family is very honorable. I was told the procedure doesn't always work, so even undergoing all of that, it was a possibility that I wouldn't bleed and that I would still be killed.
You mean if you hadn't bled, they were gonna, if the re-virginization hadn't worked, you were going to be put to death in an honor killing?
Shot in the head in the street, yeah.
No.
Man alive.
You don't even really know what to say about a story like that. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a lot of people are like, you just talk about it like it's nothing, and it's not that I talk about it like it's nothing. I just want people to see. I want them to know, what happens in other people's lives. You know, you have a lot of people that are ungrateful for their lives, or, you know, oh, woe is me, this is tough, that's tough. You know, this is tough. And if I can overcome this, then, you know, I'm sure you can overcome the things that you're going through. You know, I hope and pray that nobody's ever been through the things that are listed in my book and that I've talked about. I really don't, because I wouldn't wish them on anyone.
So Akeela, you actually ended up married to this Muslim man in Iraq.
Yes, I did.
And I mean, was that an actual, I mean, you were together as husband and wife. I guess what I'm saying is, so this wasn't a show. I mean, you actually became his wife, and then
Forced arranged marriage.
Forced arranged marriage. How did that go? What was that experience like?
Well, after everything that I'd been through up until that point, it was just another thing that brought me to despair, to just sheer brokenness. And, you know, being so young, it was, you know, you just end up in this, you know, sheer give up on life, give up on everything. You know, what is there left to live for? You know, at that point, you're hoping they do just kill you. I tried to commit suicide 3 or 4 times with no luck, and I finally just gave into the fact that that was my life, that was what I was going to live, and I could do nothing about it, because at that point I was angry at myself that I couldn't even kill myself. Was this what your father had in mind when he sent you over to Iraq? You know, honestly, to this day, I never know what he had in mind. I haven't spoken to him since I was 17 years old. I basically just learned to forgive and move on from it, and, you know, accept for people for the way they are. Yeah, it did weigh heavy on my heart. It was, you know, why would anyone put somebody through this, much less their own child? You know, being as close as I was to my father growing up, I was just in amazement that he would want this for me.
Mm. We're talking with Akeela Green. She's the author of a gripping true story called If I Live to Tell, just published from Liberty Alliance. We'll come back and give those websites again in just a moment. So somehow, you got to Iraq. These unspeakable atrocities happened to you. You're in Iraq, and somehow, at the end of 2 years, you get out of Iraq. How did you get out, and where did you go?
I was married to a very poor man who wanted to provide for his immediate family. And so his, I guess a blessing from God that he convinced my father that it was a better place for us to be in England. The agreement with my father was that if he brought us back, that I would stay with him. So that was the agreement. We managed to get out and get back to Jordan and then cross over to England. It was, it was just it was in front of me. It's what I had to go through. It's what I had to deal with to get to a point of freedom, to a point of being able to make a choice of my own, being able to escape all of these things that I had no way of escaping before.